In these uncertain economic times, it's easy to be worried about protecting your wealth, your hard-earned savings, and your family's financial future. Plunging interest rates, the devaluating dollar, and political unrest constantly threaten what you have worked hard to earn and all that you own. That's why now it's more important than ever to protect your assets and have the money you need to make your dreams come true. Welcome to the Global Wealth Fortress Report with successful global entrepreneur and wealth preservation expert Joel Nagel. Joel's helped thousands of people just like you protect what you have so that you can make even more and make your every dream come true. So, sit back and enjoy Joel Nagel's offshore expert advice on how you can live the good life at a great price, where the sun never sets on your financial fortress.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Global Wealth Fortress Report. I'm Joel Nagel and I'm broadcasting to you today from the Gloriette, which is a really tremendous symbol of the Austrian imperial dynasty. It sits up on a hill looking out over the Schönbrunn Palace. I hope you can see Schönbrunn Palace off in the distance behind me. Schönbrunn is really the Austrian version of Versailles. And I thought it was a great place to talk to you today as we continue talking about developing your own personal global wealth fortress. I've been speaking the last few days about legal structures, companies. We talked about foundations, trusts. We talked about the very unique Liechtenstein Anstalt, which I just love. It's got a lot of very unique features, and as a lawyer, we can use it the way our client wants us to use it. We can use it like a trust, we can use it like a foundation, we can use it like a company. We can actually decide for IRS purposes what we want it to be, any of those structures. And then we talked a little bit about banking, how important banking is, how restrictive it's become over the last few years, but the fact that you can still get your foot in the door if you want to have access to European private banking. But the structures are one thing, banking's something else. We talk about tax a little bit, and we'll talk about taxes a lot more in the future. But the most important thing to me when I'm sitting down with a client is helping them develop a strategy. The structures don't mean anything on their own. The bank accounts don't mean anything on their own. You have to come up with a strategy. And in my firm, when we sit down with the client, we really want to understand what their goals and objectives are. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you worried about lawsuits? Are you worried about estate planning? Are you worried about making sure your heirs have access to money, but they can't run out and spend it on expensive sports cars after you die? Is it about global diversification of your investment portfolio? Do you want to move, some of your proverbial eggs out of the U.S. dollar basket? Those are the types of questions we ask when we sit down with clients. And by getting those answers, we can really develop the strategy. And once we understand what the strategy is, then the structures start to make more sense. As I mentioned before, frequently a client will come to me, maybe they were on a cruise in the Cayman and they decided to set up a company while they were there because one of their golf buddies told them that's what they should do. So they come to me with this company and say, what am I supposed to do with it? And I say, well, I have no idea what you're supposed to do with it. That's not the way planning works. Planning is, what's your goals? What are we trying to achieve? What are the structures and strategies that we can use and implement to achieve those goals and objectives? And so, some of the things that I'm talking about as we go through this series, not everything is going to apply to you personally. Some things might, a basic bank account, that's something probably everyone needs, whether it's a private bank in Switzerland or, a little small bank account in Belize. Everybody's different on those things. For other things, when we start talking about structures, foundations, trusts, family offices, sometimes they're going to make sense for some people in some circumstances. In other cases, they won't. And so don't feel like, everything I talk about has to apply to you. I've been at conferences before where I've spoken about, 10 different things, and at the end somebody runs up and says, hey, I want you to set up all of those for me. And I say, why? And they don't really know, because they don't have a plan, they don't have a strategy. So start with your plan. We have a service that we walk through with clients. We call it the Personal Asset Protection Plan. We ask you a series of questions, we get your responses, we try to start from what are your goals and objectives, we work backwards into what are the structures and strategies to achieve those goals and objectives, and then finally we decide which jurisdictions we're going to use to achieve those goals and objectives. So and then we lay that out in a written form for the client. It's sort of a spectrum of options that make sense. We're not saying you have to do this or you have to do that. We're saying here are the options that all make sense. So I hope that makes sense to you. I'm going to sign off for now. It's been a long day. I was actually hiking and finished up at the little cafe here at the Gloriette. It's one of several hundred coffee houses. I particularly love it because we're out in the middle of the woods, but then you can see behind me we have the castle right below. It's a fantastic view. I hope you enjoyed this particular presentation, and I hope you'll join me next time for another edition of the Global Wealth Fortress Report. Until then, I wish you health, I wish you happiness, and I wish you wealth that can't be destroyed by others. See you next time. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining Joel Nagel and the Global Wealth Fortress Report, a whole new approach to asset protection and estate planning, so that now you can live the good life at a great price, where the sun never sets on your financial fortress.